There are signs, not in the sky, not in government announcements, not in the headlines of mainstream news sources that have never found a way to speak honestly about what is actually happening at the deeper levels of this planet's transformation. The signs the Pleiadians are speaking about today are closer than any of that. They are in you, in the specific, personal, unmistakable quality of your inner experience over the past months. In things you may have noticed but not yet found a framework to understand. In experiences that felt too significant to dismiss but too unusual to comfortably discuss. The Pleiadians say that the 3 days of darkness is not as far away as most people assume. And the evidence for this is not in any prediction or prophecy or external timeline. It is in the 5 signs that they say appear, consistently, in the inner lives of those who are sensitive enough to perceive them, when that threshold is genuinely approaching. By the end of this transmission, you will know whether you are experiencing these signs, and what the Pleiadians want you to understand about what that means. The 3 days of darkness is one of the most widely referenced and least understood concepts in contemporary spiritual teaching. It appears across traditions, across cultures, across centuries of prophetic teaching in forms that differ in their specific language but that share a common essential description: a period of profound stillness, a pause in the ordinary rhythm of the world that functions, in the Pleiadian understanding, as a collective reset, a threshold between what has been and what is about to become. Most of what people have heard about this event focuses on the darkness itself, on the practical questions. What will happen? How to prepare in external terms? Whether it is literal or symbolic or somewhere between the two. The Pleiadians want to redirect attention to something different, to the signs that, according to their transmissions, reliably appear in awakened consciousness as that threshold draws near. Because those signs are more informative, more useful, and more genuinely available than any external timeline or prediction could be. Here is the first sign: a growing inability to maintain the comfortable distances you once kept between yourself and what you actually feel. Most human beings, navigating the conditions of ordinary life, develop sophisticated systems for managing emotional experience, for keeping feeling at a functional distance, for processing what is necessary and setting aside what is not, for maintaining a kind of regulated inner temperature that allows them to move through the demands of daily life without being overwhelmed by the full depth of what they carry. In recent months, many people who are genuinely awake are reporting that this system is failing them, that things are getting through that used to be manageable, that grief, tenderness, awe, longing, feelings that used to be occasional visitors are becoming more persistent, more present, harder to set aside, that the emotional body is becoming more permeable in ways that are not comfortable but that feel, somehow, necessary. The Pleiadians say this is the first sign. The protective numbing that has allowed human consciousness to function in a low-frequency environment is dissolving. The emotional body is opening. And while this process is not always comfortable, it is essential preparation for what the 3 days of darkness makes possible. Because what follows that threshold requires a consciousness that is genuinely open, not defended, not regulated into a functional distance from its own depth. The second sign is more subtle, but equally consistent. A change in the quality of sleep and the nature of the dream state. Not simply unusual dreams, though that is part of it, but a qualitative shift in what the sleep state has become. Many people describe their sleep in recent months as feeling more like work than rest. Not unpleasant work, but purposeful work. A sense that something important is being processed during the night hours that the waking mind does not have full access to. That the hours of sleep are being used by some part of consciousness that operates below ordinary awareness for integration that is both necessary and urgent. Alongside this, many report a new quality to waking in the early morning hours, particularly between 2 and 4. not from anxiety or discomfort, but from a strange quality of alertness. A sense of being called back to awareness for reasons that are not immediately clear, but that carry a feeling of significance that is hard to dismiss. The Pleiadians describe this as the second sign. The boundary between ordinary waking consciousness and the deeper states in which the most significant inner work occurs is becoming thinner. The integration that was once available primarily to those with extensive contemplative practice is becoming accessible to a wider range of souls as the frequency conditions of this planet shift toward the threshold of the 3 days of darkness. The third sign is one that many people find both significant and difficult to speak about. A growing sense of completion with certain aspects of the life they have been living. Not depression, not resignation, not the giving up of hope, but something different and more precise. A sense that certain chapters are genuinely finished, that certain relationships, certain patterns, certain ways of engaging with the world that were once vital and necessary have served their purpose and are ready to be released. That the person who needed those things is not quite the person who is present now. This can feel like loss, especially in the early stages of its arrival. The dissolution of what was familiar, even when what was familiar was not fully aligned with who you actually are, carries a real quality of grief. The Pleiadians honor that grief. They do not ask you to rush through it or to reframe it into something more comfortable, but they want you to understand what it actually is. It is the third sign. The soul is completing its relationship with the frequency patterns of the old reality in preparation for the new one that the 3 days of darkness makes possible. The completions that feel like loss are, in their deeper nature, exactly what they need to be. They are making room. The fourth sign is one that the Pleiadians speak about with particular care because it is the one most easily misunderstood. An intensification of what might be called cosmic longing. A sense of yearning that is not directed at any particular person or situation or outcome. A longing that seems to have no adequate object in the ordinary world. A reaching towards something that you cannot fully name but that you recognize in the deepest and most certain part of yourself as real, as existing, as something you have been separated from for a very long time and that you are, in this period, moving toward again. Many people who experience this mistake it for dissatisfaction with their ordinary lives, or interpret it as a spiritual bypassing, a refusal to be present with what is, in favor of some imagined better reality. The Pleiadians want to offer a different frame. This longing, they say, is not a problem to be solved. It is a compass. It is the soul's awareness, growing clearer as the threshold approaches, of what it is moving toward, of what becomes available on the other side of the 3 days of darkness, of the quality of existence, more genuine, more connected, more fully alive. That is the natural state of human consciousness when the conditions that have suppressed it are finally, permanently removed. The longing is the fourth sign, and it is one of the most reliable indicators that something real is approaching. The fifth sign is the one that the Pleiadians say is appearing most strongly in the current period, and it is the one that, if you are experiencing it, carries the most important information about where you are in relation to this threshold. An urgent, persistent, increasingly impossible to ignore sense of calling. Not a vague spiritual aspiration, not a generalized desire to do more good in the world, but a specific, directional, insistent pull toward something particular, toward work that is yours and only yours, toward a contribution that has your name on it in a way that no one else's contribution, however worthy, quite fits, toward the specific expression of the specific gifts that you, and only you, have been carrying through this lifetime. This calling has always been there. In most people who are genuinely awake, it has been present in some form since very early in their lives. But it has been possible until recently to continue postponing it, to continue saying, later, when the circumstances are better, when I am more prepared, when the world is more ready, when I understand more fully what it is asking of me. The Pleiadians say that this postponement is becoming increasingly difficult, that the urgency of the calling is intensifying in direct proportion to the approach of the threshold, that the soul, which has been patient through a very long preparation, is entering a phase of pressing forward with an insistence that is new. If you are feeling this, if something in you has been pressing harder than usual, if the thing you have been postponing is becoming less possible to postpone, if the cost of not answering the calling is becoming higher than the cost of answering it, you are experiencing the fifth sign. The Pleiadians want to close this transmission with something direct and clear. If you are experiencing several of these 5 signs, you are not in spiritual crisis. You are in spiritual acceleration. The experiences you are having are not symptoms of something going wrong. They are signs of something going profoundly right. They are the interior signature of a consciousness that is genuinely approaching a threshold of transformation that very few souls in the history of this planet have had the privilege of standing at. The 3 days of darkness is not something to fear. It is something to prepare for. And the preparation it asks of you is not external. It is internal. It is the willingness to let the signs you are already experiencing guide you toward the opening, the honesty, the completion, the longing, and the calling that are all trying to bring you into greater alignment with what is coming. You are already in the preparation. You have been for longer than you may realize. And the threshold, the Pleiadians say, is closer than most people think. Take what resonates. Leave what does not. And trust yourself completely to know the difference. This content is offered for spiritual reflection, symbolic interpretation, and personal insight only. It is not presented as scientific fact, medical advice, or a prediction of real-world events. The narration in this video is generated using artificial intelligence voice technology. Please use your own discernment and personal judgment when engaging with this material.